Hello everyone, it is Bridget here from Bridget's Healthy Kitchen, wishing you a wonderful day. Wherever it is you are in the world, I hope you are well and I hope you are safe. Thank you for joining me on this very special episode of Cooking Healthy with me. We are creating a very delicious, very, what's the best way to describe it? Very authentic version of a ANZAC biscuit, but we are taking out the dairy and we are taking out the sugar. So yes, it's authentic because you still get that flavor and you get that wonderful crunch that is just so familiar when it comes to ANZAC cookies or ANZAC biscuits. I should get that right, not a cookie, it's a biscuit. But I have removed things that are not necessarily that important and definitely things that are not that great for our diet. So we are creating a biscuit that's gluten-free, sugar-free and dairy-free. In fact, these ANZAC biscuits are even vegan-friendly. So there's no animal products in there. They are really easy to make. And because we are commemorating ANZAC Day this coming weekend in Australia and New Zealand, and as you guys know, ANZAC stands for Australia New Zealand Army Corps. So we are celebrating, we are commemorating our brave soldiers who fought for us throughout the wars, World War I and World War II, where these biscuits were actually sent to the front line. So they were baked at home in Australia and New Zealand, in kitchens all over Australia and New Zealand, and then they were put into care packages and they were sent off to our brave soldiers so they could be sustained and also have that wonderful treat from home. So we're going to be creating that, and yes, I'm doing a healthy version, but they still taste like ANZACs, which is the brilliant part of it. So let's get into the recipe. As I was saying, it's really simple, very, very easy. I'm going to start off with, in here I have 100 grams of oats. So just your normal oatmeal goes in here. And of course, as we know, when it comes to oatmeal, now if you are celiac, it is definitely suggested that you choose oats from your supermarket or your store that have gluten-free on the pack, because even though oats on their own are actually gluten-free, where the contamination may occur is in the factory that processes the oats. So for example, if they were processing other foods in that factory that did have gluten, there is the possibility of the oats becoming contaminated with the gluten. So for celiacs, or if you're very, very, like I'm talking highly gluten sensitive, then you want to go for a gluten-free oats. If not, your normal rolled oats is absolutely fine for people like me who have an intolerance but are not really, really sensitive. So 100 grams, which is 3.5 ounces goes in there. The next one I'm going to grab up is a little bit of coconut flour. It gives it a really nuttiness, which is quite delicious. So with the coconut flour, I'm going to get my little scales. With the coconut flour, we're going to be adding into our bowl 50 grams. Now 50 grams of coconut flour is about 1.7 ounces of coconut flour. Don't go overboard with coconut flour. You definitely want to weigh this one precisely. And the reason being is that coconut flour is very sucky. In other words, it soaks up all the moisture and it can make your cookies or your biscuits quite dry. So definitely weigh that one off pretty precisely. That's 50 grams or 1.7 ounces. We're also, let's just up the coconut flavor, right? We are also going to be adding in, I've got in here, these are coconut shreds. You could use desiccated coconut if you want to, but I'm using ones that are just a little bit longer because they give a bit of texture in that biscuit. But feel free to use desiccated coconut. Just make sure that you read the label of your coconut packet and make sure it's unsweetened. It was with much shock and horror that I discovered that sometimes there is sugar put into dried coconut. Could not believe it. So when it comes to our dried shredded or desiccated coconut, we're going to go with another 50 grams. So 50 grams of that goes in. Remember, 1.7 ounces. And if you are someone who uses ounces, chances are you haven't heard what an ANZAC biscuit is. It is a classic from Australia and New Zealand, literally a classic. And every time this year, this is one of the things that I have done for pretty much as long as I can remember, is every single ANZAC Day, I commemorate our soldiers by creating this wonderful batch. They're very similar to oatmeal cookies for our American friends. Tastes amazing. All right, so we've got our coconut in there. We're also going to be putting in a little bit of gluten-free flour. You can either use a gluten-free flour from your supermarket, so one that's already pre-made, or if you want to, you could use my gluten-free flour blend. That recipe, I believe I shared with you, I can't remember when I shared that. I know some of you have got it, and now I'm going to be asked for the recipe. I realise that. Sorry. So if not, go with your pre-made gluten-free flour blend. And when it comes to our gluten-free flour, we're going to be adding in 70 grams, and 70 grams of, 70 grams is about 2.5 ounces of our gluten-free flour goes in there. All right, that is done. Okay, next thing on our list, we need to add a bit of sweetener, of course. And what better way to add a bit of sweetener is I have our pure as inulin powder here. Zero that off so I can put in the right amount. So when it comes to our zero sugar, so our pure as inulin, of course that means that we are now adding a fabulous prebiotic quality to our biscuits, which is amazing. We are now creating a gut healthy version of the classic ANZAC biscuit. Pretty crazy stuff, right? We are going to be adding obviously the sweetener through here, the sweetness, but we're also adding a prebiotic quality. So we're going to be putting in 75 grams of our pure as inulin, and yes, pure as inulin is now currently available on our store. We do have some bags left, don't we, Mahi? Yes, we do. He's just given me the big nod. We have some bags left on our store, so if you want to get yourself some supplies, now is the time to do it. We are still, having, I wouldn't say issues, but our delivery is still a little bit slow, and that's where we get our inulin powder from in the UK. In Europe, it has to deal with quite a lot of different shipping issues and with COVID and stuff. So we do have it in stock now. So I would suggest if you want some, I would definitely stock up now. All right, give that a bit of a mix through. There isn't really a lot of other of our dry ingredients that we need to add, so this is a good time to give it a bit of a stir. And then we're going to think about adding in our wet ingredients. And the wet ingredients is, once again, we're going to be going for a little prebiotic quality. Traditionally, ANZAC biscuits have golden syrup. So we're replacing golden syrup, which is literally just like pure liquid sugar. It will spike your insulin, it'll raise your blood glucose. Look, I know it's delicious, but it's one of those syrups that we really need to avoid having in our diet. So the alternative, obviously, the healthy alternative, is our fiber syrup. So I have in here, this is just 100 grams of gently melted coconut oil. So that is already done for me. And then to that, I'm just going to be adding in 3 tablespoons, or 3 squirts. That doesn't sound very nice. I apologise. I won't say that word again. I will say 3 tablespoons of our fiber syrup goes in there. We can't say the S word. That's not very nice. All right, give it a bit of a whisk together. And then all that's left now is, I've got a little bowl here, and I'm going to be taking in 1 teaspoon of baking soda or bicarb soda. 1 teaspoon. Make sure it's level. Going into my little bowl. And then I'm going to be grabbing up the jug. Could someone please pass me the jug? It's over there. Boiling water is what we need. I just put the jug a little bit far out of reach. Thank you, Coco. Wonderful. So you just want to put in a tablespoon of recently boiled water. That is going to dissolve the baking soda. And the reason why this is really important, this is a really important step, and it's one that I had no idea the science behind, so I did a bit of research. The reason why you want to dissolve the baking soda into the hot water is this is what's going to actually help to give our ANZAC biscuits the most incredible colour. It is the baking soda which really helps to develop the colour within our biscuits. So let's now add the fiber syrup and the melted coconut oil. As well as that, let's also look at adding in our baking soda. It's been dissolved in that tablespoon of hot water. And then we're going to give everything a bit of a mix through. And this is where you need to start using your own judgment a little bit. Because what's going to happen is, depending on the type of gluten-free flour you use, because every gluten-free flour blend, they're designed differently depending on what brand you choose, depending on what country you live in. They're all designed quite differently. And then, of course, if you decide to choose and use my homemade gluten-free flour blend, it's going to be different again. And in different, what I'm saying is, what I'm referring to is that flour will have different absorbencies. So what you may find, depending on your flour, and this is where clean hands come in handy, what you might find, depending on your flour, is you use what's known as the crunch test, different type of crunch test. Using your clean hands, you're going to squeeze the mixture together. And what you're pretty much looking for is you're looking for the ability to be able to roll a ball of your biscuit dough and for it to not crumble away. This one's a little bit crumbly. I'm afraid that by the time I get towards the end of the bowl, it's going to be super crumbly. So because I'm sort of thinking, no, you know what? It could do with a little bit more moisture. Taking just 1 tablespoon at a time. 1 tablespoon at a time. You're going to add some water. Go in there with your crunch test, so you're crunching it between your fingers. And what you'll notice instantly, even with just that 1 tablespoon of water, the massive, massive improvement in the texture that's in your bowl right now. You can kind of almost hear it. It's starting to squinch a little bit between my fingers, which is great. And that's letting me know that I'm able to pick up some, oh, did you hear that little squishiness? Pick up the dough and quite easily, as you can see, form our dough into a pretty good little ball. So that's your next step. You want to take yourself up a cookie tray or a flat tray, put a little bit of baking paper, non-stick baking paper down on that tray, or I'm using one of those silicone non-stick mats, and you can get between 12 to 14 wonderful ANZAC biscuits out of this mixture. So it's pretty generous. It makes a good amount. It depends also, I suppose, how much you want to eat. It's hard to stop at 1. Let me tell you, they are extremely moreish. So using those clean fingers, of course, you just go through, and because it's just that 1 tablespoon has made so much difference when it comes to the water, it's really, really easy for me to now roll these into balls. Really, really easy. So do all your balls. Now, by the way, the oven is preset. I've preheated the oven. It's currently sitting on 170 degrees Celsius, and that is 320 degrees Fahrenheit. And because I'm baking cookies, or biscuits, faux pas, biscuits, because I'm baking biscuits, well, even if you're baking cookies, I have my tray, I have my wire rack in the middle of the oven. That's just going to make sure these biscuits get cooked really, really evenly. You don't want to have your wire rack too high, the biscuits will burn on the top, and you don't want to have the wire rack too low, because they'll get too crunchy on the bottom. If you want them to be just right, I feel like Goldilocks in the 3 Bears, if you want them to be just right, place your wire rack in the middle of the oven. In fact, that's the best place always to have your wire rack when you're baking just one item, is keep it as central as you can, because like I said, you don't want it to get too hot, which will burn on the top, or the base will get too hard down the bottom. All right, okay, I probably need to clean these now. That's pretty bad. Where is my tea towel? Oh, here we go. I'll do a little quick clean. Ugh. Sticky but good, and they smell really good as well. So fill up your tray. Fill up your tray with your wonderful biscuit dough, and then I'm going to be taking, where is it? Oh, here it is. I've just got a little spatula here, and what I'm going to be doing with the spatula is just very gently applying a bit of pressure and flattening them a little bit. Not too much. You don't want to really push on them hard, because they may break on you, which is what you want to avoid. You're going to get a beautiful round cookie if you just, or biscuit, if you just push down just a little bit. All right, so once it's at this stage, you get your tray full, you push down just a little bit, over to the oven you go, and you set your timer for 7 minutes. You're probably thinking that's a pretty exact time. Trust me on this. So I've made these so many times, I've kind of literally got it down to the minute. So set your timer for 7 minutes. After 7 minutes, remove them from the oven, go back to your spatula and push them down even further, and you'll get better spread biscuits. So, and then once you've done that, you push them down again a little bit so they spread a little bit more, pop them back into the oven, and they'll need another 6 to 7 minutes. And that all depends. The reason I say 6 to 7 minutes, because that all depends on the texture that you like. Because there's two ways you can have them. You can either have them quite crunchy, or you can have them a little bit chewier. So if you like your biscuits chewy, you want to keep an eye on the second time they go into the oven. Oh, sorry, guess someone prepared earlier. If you like yours crisp, which is what I do, I leave mine in there just for a minute longer and don't need much time. And what you are then rewarded with, check that out. Look at that colour. Look at that colour. Would you look at that? Look at that wonderful colour underneath as well. So even though, yes, this tray was in the middle of the oven, we're still getting a lovely, lovely crunchy base and a lovely, lovely, beautiful biscuit inside. It's quite phenomenal. So there you go for our soldiers, for our tummies, for our gut. We have the most wonderful gluten-free, sugar-free, dairy-free, vegan-friendly ANZAC biscuits. If you feel like doing something this weekend, whip up a batch of ANZACs. Alright guys, it has been an absolute pleasure spending time with you in the kitchen today. I hope you enjoy making these wonderful cookies, biscuits. I know, people go, it's not the same thing, but there is sometimes some people who are quite offended by calling these cookies, but at the end of the day, it's the same thing, isn't it? Except these are ANZAC biscuits. So I look forward to spending more time with you in the kitchen, coming up really, really soon. I will share this recipe with you guys on Bridget's Healthy Kitchen tomorrow if you want to have your own downloadable PDF. Keep an eye out for it. Until then, guys, I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye.